Welcome to yet another Tech Explainer video from Tech Talk with Balu. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on something that powers a huge chunk of the internet you use every single day. The virtual computer. We're going to zero in on Amazon's beast of a service, EC2, because it has totally, fundamentally changed the game for how software gets built. So let's get started. I mean, really think about that for a second. What if I told you there was no need to buy a closet full of expensive, noisy hardware? No waiting around for boxes to arrive, managing a server room, just pure, raw computing power available whenever you want it. That's the wild idea we're digging into. Alright, so how is all this even possible? Well, it comes down to a service called Amazon EC2. Now, the full name is Elastic Compute Cloud, which sounds kind of technical, I know, but the idea behind it is actually super simple. That's it right there. At its core, EC2 is all about renting computers that live inside Amazon's giant data centers instead of having to buy and run your own. And that word, elastic, that's the magic key. It means you can stretch your computer power up when you're busy and shrink it back down when you're not, almost instantly. You'll hear this term IaaS thrown around a lot. What it really means is that you're not just renting an app. No, you are renting the actual fundamental building blocks. You get the virtual servers, the hard drives, the networking, the whole shebang. And that gives you this incredible level of control to build pretty much anything you can dream up. Okay, so how does this actually work? Let's say you're ready to rent your first virtual computer. Your very first decision, and maybe the most important one, is picking the right machine for what you want to do. You know, it's really all about using the right tool for the job. I mean, you wouldn't use a tiny little hammer to break up concrete, right? Well, it's the same idea here. AWS gives you this huge menu of what they call instance types, because let's face it, not all jobs need the same kind of muscle. Now don't worry, you don't need to memorize a billion different names. Just think of them in these main groups. If you're running a basic website, general purpose is your best friend. It's got a nice balance of everything. But if you're doing something intense, like say, processing video or running complex simulations, you'll want compute optimized for its powerful processors running a massive database. You need memory optimized to hold all that data. It's all about matching the machine to the mission. This just shows you the insane range we're talking about. On the left, you've got something tiny, a T2 Micro, which you can actually use for free when you're starting out. And on the right, an absolute monster. A machine with 64 virtual processors and over 500 gigabytes of RAM. That's way more power than even most high-end gaming PCs have. It's just incredible. So, you've picked out your perfect virtual computer. Awesome. But hang on, before you throw your life's work on there, you have got to protect it. And that's where the super important thing called a security group comes in. The best way to think about a security group is to picture a really, really strict bouncer at the door of your server's club. This bouncer has a list. If your name's not on the list, you are not getting in. Period. It is your first and honestly, your most critical line of defense. And how it works is actually kind of brilliant in its simplicity. By default, every single door and window to your server is locked shut. Nothing gets in. Then you get to decide which doors to open and for whom. So you need a web server, okay? You create a rule to open up port 80 to web traffic. Need to log in yourself? Fine. You open up port 22, but maybe only from your home's IP address. You have total control. Alright, let's talk about the money, because honestly, this is one of the most revolutionary things about cloud computing, and EC2 nails it. The way you pay for all this power is just as flexible as the computers themselves. This hotel analogy is perfect. On demand is like walking up to the front desk and paying the standard nightly rate. It's super flexible, but it's the IaaS. Then you have reserved. This is like booking your hotel room for a whole year in advance. You commit, and in return, you get a massive discount. And then there's spot. This is the fun one. It's like bidding on an empty room for the night. You can get an unbelievable deal. We're talking up to 90% off, but there's a catch. If someone else needs that room and is willing to pay more, the hotel can kick you out with just a couple of minutes' notice. So your virtual computer is up and running, but it's just the brain. It needs a place to store everything. Its operating system, your apps, your files. And just like with everything else, you've got some really important choices here. The big question you have to ask is, does my data need to stick around? If the answer is yes, you're going to use what's called an EBS volume. Just think of it like a virtual USB drive. You can plug into your server. The data is safe and sound even if you turn the server off. But if you need lightning speed for temporary files, like for caching, you can use an instant store. It's physically bolted to the host machine, so it's crazy fast. But, and this is a big but, the second that server stops, poof, all that data is gone forever. Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. We've talked about picking servers, locking them down, paying for them, and storing data. But why does any of this matter? Why has this idea of renting virtual computers been such a complete revolution? Well, the scale is just mind-boggling. We are talking about more than 1 million active users. This isn't some niche tech for nerds. This is the engine that's running a massive piece of the modern internet. From the tiny startup in a garage with a cool idea, all the way up to a giant like Netflix, streaming movies to millions of us all at the same time. This is why it's such a big deal that pay-as-you-go model completely rewrote the rules for starting a business. You don't need millions in funding for hardware anymore. You can start with the change in your pocket. The scalability means if your app suddenly goes viral, you can handle millions of users in minutes. But you know the most important thing? It leveled the playing field. It democratized innovation. Today, a student in a dorm has access to the exact same world-class computing power as a multi-billion-dollar corporation. So, when you boil it all down, the real story here isn't just about renting servers. It's about what that enables. It's about unleashing possibilities. It's a blank canvas with an infinite supply of paint. So I guess the only question left to ask is, with all that power at your fingertips, what would you build? Let me know in the comments below.